Let's just get started with one thing that I want to say. For years and years, liberals, NATO Atlantists, Globe Twitter emoji weirdos, right wingers, and so many people have called people like myself campist, tanky, un-American, anti-American, America hater. Okay? Someone who should be deported, terrorist. For a bunch of different things that I have said over and over again, a bunch of different truths that I have said over and over again, such as economic sanctions on foreign adversaries are oftentimes not very successful and simply are an act of collective punishment that leads to hundreds of thousands of dead every single year, with the hopes that you can starve out the population enough that you destabilize it and then they rise up in arms and try to kill their leadership, right? That's number one. The other thing is that the liberal international rule-based order has always been a fucking lie to extract super profits from the periphery and from the global south in general, while, steadily keeping them down and underdeveloped and overexploited so that you can extract their natural resources and you can utilize them as a cheap substitute that will displace the domestic labor base with a labor force that will work for pennies on the dollar. Now, both of those things are true, and that the entire process that the Western world has designed post-World War II is simply just a lie, right? It's a very cruel, very brutal, and very awful system of violence that through the liberal patina has been able to reinforce itself, justify its existence by making it seem like it's far better than the old school colonial violence that people used to experience, even though I am of the mindset, as many are in my side of the ideological spectrum, that this entire system was a lie, and Vladimir Lenin is vindicated forever. R.I.P. to my goat. So, it turns out they're now saying the quiet part out loud, as a matter of fact. Okay? They're saying the quiet part out loud quite frequently. Some are saying it to defend their actions. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Treasury. Okay, we're going to be talking about the Treasury, where sanctions do come from, right? And the way that the where is this? Scott Bessent, the way that Scott Bessent has talked about how sanctions were very impactful in Iran. Bessent credits maximum pressure sanctions for the Iran protests is work because in December their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports, and this is why the people took to the streets. This is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. Now, when we say stuff like that, people would say, you're fucking delusional. You're a fucking liar. How dare you say this? You're a piece of shit. Okay? When leftists say things like this, when anti-imperialists say things like this, they would get called regime apologists, right? Matt Petty is correct. And what's so frustrating about it is that it was always true. And every single person that was working at the Treasury Department, working in the government, knew that it was true. And yet the media still presented this absolute lie. Handing out this Quincy Institute apology form, says Alex Jordan, Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft apology form. The Quincy Institute from The Blob. Date, after the unipolar moment. The Atlantic convinced me that the U.S. isn't an empire. I didn't watch the actual 9/11 wars, which killed 4.5 million people. I miss policing the world. I don't know how global military primacy actually works. Mercury was in retrograde. I was jealous of Henry Kissinger. I will hereby respect anti-interventionism, and I will not talk down on the future first ballot Hall of Famer. So it's undeniable at this point, and that's the beauty of Donald Trump, right? The beauty of Donald Trump is he just says the quiet part out loud. Now, what comes next is what's the most important part of this process, because, like, this is the same principle behind, like, people becoming openly racist. On the one hand, it's good because you know who your enemies are. It's good because you know what their true opinions are, right? And you can make a much more convincing argument as to why that person is racist. But it's also bad because a lot of people feel more comfortable being openly racist and saying, no, actually, I do ride with this shit, you know? It's no longer about trying to defend people saying the N-word on freedom of speech grounds, but openly saying the N-word yourself because it's now permissible. And it kind of feels the same way in this situation as well. Naked, brutal, vulgar imperialism in broad daylight is going to both have a lot of naysayers, a lot of people who decide, actually, I don't like this at all. Maybe I was deluded into thinking that the liberal international order was good because I thought, you know, maybe this is going to cause some kind of delicate balance, at least in the Western world, and maybe it was helping uplift the periphery, the global South. Maybe I was deluded into thinking that, and it actually isn't the case. You know, there are some liberal interventionists out there who were maintaining this position. Many of them realized that this was silly. God damn, dude. It's so fucking annoying. There are liberals out there who had deluded themselves into thinking, had established this false notion that liberal interventionism is actually good. Okay? That liberal interventionism is a good thing. Trump has already posted that there's a deal reached for Greenland, by the way. We're going to be talking about that in a brief moment. But I think it's important for people to understand that, like, this is not going away. The amount of power that Donald Trump has over the Western world is not going away at all. Okay? It didn't go away before. It was always there, and it's still going to continue. So just understand what I mean when I say this, right? Trump calls off tariffs on several European countries following productive meeting with NATO Secretary General Rutte. Based on a very productive meeting that I've had, understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect February 1st. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others, as needed, will be responsible for the negotiations, and they will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention to this matter. You guys are saying taco, but as I said yesterday, as I talked about yesterday, this is the inevitable outcome. They are going to try to find a manageable outcome where Trump feels good about completely controlling Greenland in a Puerto Rico-style situation, a similar framework, and they are going to sell it off. They're going to sell Greenland off in a similar fashion to Puerto Rico, I guess, and that Europe is going to cave and capitulate, as I said. Mark Rutte has no authority to make this deal. It does not matter. It does not matter. They will go and they will fucking tell Denmark and everyone to suck it the fuck up eventually. They will try to design it in a way like Trump already owns Greenland, guys. Trump already owns Greenland. Trump already owns Denmark. Trump owns every NATO country. America owns every NATO country. That's why this was such a ridiculous back and forth that was going on. Okay? They already own all of these countries. If your entire defense system is reliant on American manufactured weapons and you don't have a standing military, you barely have a standing military, and most of your military prowess and your defense comes from America's military, you don't have a nation state. How is this difficult to contend with? How is this difficult to understand? If you don't have a standing military, if you don't have your own domestic manufacturing, if you don't have your own robust security cooperative agreement that does not have the United States of America in its design, you don't have anything. Okay? It's effing again. That's awesome. Just a lot of mini Fs today. Fucking, I hate this so much. I hate this so goddamn much. I hate Los Angeles. I hate this fucking stupid ass country. I hate data centers. I hate my internet service provider. I hate AT&T. God, I hate it with all of my heart. I hate fucking Spectrum. I hate everything, okay? I hate it all. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. But do you want Europe to have its own military? Yes, I do. I want Europe to have its own independence. I want Europe to have its own sovereignty because I believe that if Europe has its own sovereignty and leverages its relationship with China, for example, they can at the very least cause America to stand down from time to time. Okay? Yes. Like a sovereign Europe, for example, that isn't playing the role of a dog, a servile dog, could have at least punished the United States of America and Israel separately. a sovereign Europe is more malleable to the interests of its own population. When your population rises up and does like general strikes, for example, you're more invested in you're more invested in listening to the demands being made by your own citizens. You are not as big as a servile little piggy that will do everything that America wants, that works specifically at the behest of American empire. Now, does this mean that like, they wouldn't attach themselves to Israel so completely? Maybe they would. They most likely would, right? Because the same capitalist forces, the same interests of empire remain inside of Europe just as it does everywhere else, right? My point is, however, that there is at least there is more opportunity to make change and more pressure points. Okay? There's opportunity to make change and more pressure points that you can lean into. There is a higher response rate. There's a higher response to the democratic process if you're not directly under the thumb of American empire.